The American Freedom Radio Network proudly presents, live from Phoenix, Arizona, The Truth Denied Talk Radio with host Roxy Lopez. Join us here for topics you won't hear on mainstream news, such as chemtrails, GMOs, Morgellons disease, and much more. Humanity is 7 billion strong. We are the majority. And now, live from the Valley of the Sun, your host, Roxy Lopez.
Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Truth Tonight Talk Radio. Of course, I'm your host, Roxy Lopez. Before I bring on our next guest, I wanted to thank everyone who's been writing in to the Truth Denied and to the radio shows. We are picking up a lot of listenership through American Freedom Radio. Kudos to American Freedom, and quite a few people this past week even wrote in, and I am honored that you wrote in and said that I was your new favorite host. This was your new favorite show. So that's fabulous, and I really appreciate it. And all of us at the Truth Tonight, remember, we're an organization of volunteers, and we are, you know, aimed at educating the public with quite a few of the hidden agendas of the ruling elite and so forth. So you're well aware of that. And those of you who have, new to this show, new listeners, you're very welcome to be here. And of course, anytime you want to call in our shows, you're welcome to do that as well. I'll be giving out the number in a few minutes, and you're welcome to call anytime and speak with our guests. And if we could, we did get some emails last week about, we had a wonderful guest, Suzanne Taylor, regarding crop circles, and I want to address this right now. After about an hour and a half of her being on the show, the caller line did ring, and one of the gentlemen that called in asked about something that was totally off topic. And a lot of you got really angry at my guest because my guest was not versed in the topic of Morgellons disease, although I am. And we do have shows, and our website does cover Morgellons disease. So let me just be very clear. Suzanne Taylor wasn't familiar with the question, and I did ask the caller to please just write us in at info@thetruthDenied.com, where we could discuss the matter further of what he wanted or needed to expose to me. I want you all to know that the man never did write us. I have not been able to contact him, and that's it. But for those of you who are writing in and, you know, saying that Suzanne didn't address the question, I don't think her intention was to catch the man off guard by saying she didn't understand the question. We need to be a lot more forgiving than that. And if you're going to get angry at her about that, or angry at me about that, I really don't know what to tell you, because she honestly does not know and did not want to comment on something that had nothing to do with what her delivery was, which was the study of, you know, crop circles. Okay, so hopefully we can move on from that, and I will not be answering any emails, any more emails after today regarding that subject matter, because now we're getting into drama, and sorry, kids, we're about truth here. And speaking about truth, my guest today is just absolutely fabulous, wonderful woman. Her name is Laura Lee Mistycah, and a lot of you already do know of her. You already wrote in and said, "Oh, you couldn't wait," and everything. And me too. I'm with all of you. I'm very excited to have Laura Lee on the show. You know, she's been the cutting edge in the healing arts. You know, working in the healing arts for over 30 years, both as a practitioner and instructor. And she designed several new and innovative quantum healing techniques, and has clients all over the world. This woman is a really amazing woman. And Laura Lee is also a solitary practitioner in Wicca, but has recently morphed into more of a sorceress, developing her own magic methods and tools to reverse spells, curses, black magic, voodoo, that type of stuff. And that's very real, you know. She has become skilled in clearing all types of psychic, organic, and metallic implants. using Almora site, the Stone of Truth and Justice. And for those of you who want to follow along or take a look at her website, our focus today is going to be on the Indigos, the first wave Indigos. So her website is firstwaveindigos.com. So she has a blog on that. She is the author of a fabulous book. Well, a few books actually, but the book that we're going to be focusing on today, I believe, is Living in an Indigo House. So it's called Living in an Indigo House, The Heartaches and Victories of the First Wave Indigos. And this is a fascinating book. We'll talk more with Laura about the book and of some questions that we all have regarding the Indigos. Laura has a special take on this. And again, she's been the cutting edge in the healing arts for over 30 years. Very respected woman. And I'd like to welcome her to the show. So Laura Lee, welcome to our show.
Oh, thank you, and thank you for that awesome introduction. I was sitting there and thinking, I'd like to meet that person. You did such a good job.
Oh, aren't you sweet? Aren't you special? And thank you. Laura, for the listening audience that might not know of you, or just a sort of a recap for those who do know you, why don't we just start with just a little bit of background on, your 30 years in the healing arts and where you're at today. Just some exciting adventures that you've been on and why.
Oh, wow. That's a loaded question. Yeah, I have been, I was kind of started out with nutrition and foot reflexology, and I was doing that back in the 70s when that was really weird and woo-woo. And then I got several types of education from that and then started teaching for the community college. And then I got into muscle response testing with kinesiology to help people know which vitamins and things were good for them, and kind of doing medical intuitive work that way. And then I realized that my skills could be taken to the counseling aspect of healing. And so I would help my clients not only with nutrition and, seeing how their organs are doing, to finding out what emotional challenges were behind that. And one thing led to another, and I started getting weirder and weirder.
Oh, really?
And now I'm really weird.
Are you
My
really?
Ghostbuster calls me the Queen of Weird.
You live in a different reality, don't you?
Oh, totally. In fact, I live in a lot of different realities. Sometimes I'm not quite sure where I am.
Oh, my goodness. You're not the first. I've had a lot of guests that are in the same boat. It reminds me, in your book, there are quite a few, you have documented letters in the midsection to the end. And if I may, I would like to quote something from one of the letters in your book. May I?
Okay.
Sure. Which reminds me of what we're talking about right now. Let's see. This was from Romania. And I don't know if it's a woman or a man. I can't tell by the name. But I will say that the age was 23 of the person that wrote in. And they say, quote, "A lot of us live in two worlds. The real, normal, everyday human world and the world we touch in our dreams, the places we feel we've been to, where everything is just so right. There is a delicate balance which must be maintained. Trying to live only in the quote-unquote real world will have the other one haunting you subtly, while trying to live in the other one will make those around you think you're losing touch with quote-unquote reality." Their version of it, in parentheses. There will always be forces in the world that will try to convince you that you are less than you are. Family, friends, strangers, teachers at school, colleagues at work, as well as unseen mind demons and foreign consciousness. A lot of these will all try to make you believe as much as they can that you can't do something. But if you believe, then so will it be. So will it be. Sorry. That struck me as a real near and dear emotion and observation that I personally have had in my life. And I know a lot of people that have it as well. So that's why I brought up the two realities.
Yeah, very good, because there's times if you don't do things to ground yourself with this kind of work, and in the work that you're doing when we're, locking horns with the powers that be on a daily basis, whether it's physically or on the etheric, you can get trashed really fast, and you have to do things to keep your balance. And I was talking to, I don't know if you're familiar with the new video that came out. It's called Zion King. And I was talking to Grace, the author of that, and I said, how do you do all of this research exposing the global elite and maintain your balance? And she said, it's hard sometimes, but what I do is I volunteer for the local humane society and take dogs for a walk every day. And I thought, what a marvelous, marvelous thing. Here she's doing community service. She's being with these poor animals that don't have a home, and that's how she gets grounded. I thought that was just perfect. And I know we all have to do our own way, and to me, animals are a huge part of staying grounded and focused and stable. And I just thought that was really a cool thing that she's doing.
I think that's fabulous, and I think I can totally relate to that because I also work with animal shelters volunteering, and animals are unconditional. They give us unconditional love, and as much as humans want to think that we're so unconditionally loving beings, we're quite, get real, look in the mirror. We really are conditional. We're just much more complicated, I guess, and complex, I should say, than that. And so animals have this amazing ability or blind side or something to just unconditionally love us, and they're genuinely happy to see us, and they don't give us an attitude, and they don't quit their job, and they don't try to be somebody they're not. They're just amazing. They're authentic beings, authentic spirits. They don't know any different. So what a wonderful answer.
No, and I totally agree with that. It's interesting. One of the things in my book is where it talks about the indigo profiles and what indigos do, and it says, that at parties and things like that, they'd rather hang out with the person's pets than they would the other guests.
Oh my gosh,
and that's so true.
Because I have actually said that before, that I had more fun with the horses in the back and the couple of dogs than I did with the people. I can't believe you just said that. Oh my God, it's giving me goosebumps. But yes, and I'm sure there are a lot of people that can relate to that statement. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
But well, you just but it's special stuff, and just a question for you as well. You have been what I call a humanitarian, a servant to humanity, a service-oriented being because of all of your work. So I want to thank you for that. Thank you, sister. Thank you for being out there.
Well, that's really nice. One of the things that's kind of dear to my heart right now is what's going on with the inhumane farming practices now, and I'm a real advocate for all of them, but especially for the chickens. And I would just admonish people to check out some of the videos that are showing how they farm chickens. They put them in these tiny cages. They barely have room to move. They are there their entire life. And their whole, it's like they have this energy on them that they have to lay eggs. I got some battery hens about a month ago from the Turlock rescue that happened way back the end of February, where the owner of this farm just left. He left 50,000 hens to rot in their cages. And by the time they found out, it was kind of late, and a lot of them had died. But there were several animal rescue places that were able to go in and help them out and then adopt them out. And I have some of those animals with me, and they are the most amazing. It's like they are so grateful. The first few days that I had them, they were so scared. They would just stay in the back of the pen. They wouldn't hardly talk, and they wouldn't fly up on the perches because they didn't know how to perch. They would just sleep on the floor. And eventually they started talking, and then they understand now what treats are, and now I'm able to take them outside a little bit and let them roam around a little, scratch in the dirt outside and get some greenery. But these animals, I feel like we can learn so much about the corruption that went on inside those cages by having them here at my house. And it's almost like, and I hesitate to say this over the air because I'll probably get slammed for it, but it's like we're able to get some keys and codes for what was going on and how that system works. And I tell you what, Roxy, we are on their tail, and we are going to bust their behinds, okay?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I was going to say, as you described the enslavement of just the chickens or the lack of respect for life, I think that is mirroring what is happening to humanity altogether. So we're going to take a short break, and when we get back, I have a question. My first question is going to be, what is the first wave indigo? What does that mean? So stay tuned. Don't turn that dial. We'll be right back with Laura Lee Mistycah.
Welcome to the world's meeting place. American.
It's practically narcotic.
Freedom.
Oh, yes. I like very much.
Radio.
You're an American institution.
American Freedom Radio.
We're back with the Truth Tonight Talk Radio. I'm Roxy Lopez, and of course our guest today is Laura Lee Mistycah. And we were just starting to talk a little bit about her book. And again, the book that we are referencing is called Living in an Indigo House, The Heartaches and Victories of First Wave Indigos, which I find absolutely fascinating. With what we were just talking about, Laura, with what we are seeing in the world, with the control or the disrespect of all living things, really, that humans, I think, we really need to start paying attention to that. Unlike the physical ailments, the physical entrapment that animals are experiencing, I personally think that humanity has entered an era of mind control, that it's all in our mind, and that makes it very difficult for us to communicate with one another. Hence, in your book, what is a first waver, and where did they come from?
Okay, first wave indigos started coming to the planet, started like 70, 80 years ago. In fact, Nikola Tesla was a first wave indigo. And most of them came in between 1969 and 1987, about 62%. And then there was about 30% that came in the late 40s, early 50s, or through the 50s, like the baby boomer era. And the reason that they started coming in at those times is when the internet started coming online and people were starting to connect through the internet. That's when indigos had to be here. And so they started coming in, and then in mass, these 80s children are at the front of the lines right now in the with the first, I call them first wave indigo nights, or ultraviolet nights. And the people in the Occupy movement, the Anon movement, the people that are the animal rights activists that are getting the information out, that are putting bills together to rewrite what's going on with our government. And you see them all over the place, and it's snowballing. They're not. It's not getting less. It's getting more. And the more they connect, the more they support each other. And I see this movement as huge and unstoppable.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Now you mentioned real quick, Nikola Tesla was a first waver. Can you explain how you know that?
Two things.
Please
One,
tell.
it's a psychic ability that I have, and number two is I talk to him.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Okay. So it sounds really weird for some people to go, yeah, whatever. But and he actually is, when I do indigo readings for people, and we find out who their spirit guides and guardians are, there's a lot of people that now have Tesla as one of their spirit guides. And his body may not be here, but he's alive and kicking, let me tell you.
That's awesome. I actually completely get that, and I'm very familiar with that. So I was actually hoping that's what you were going to say, because you talk to him, and that's how you know. And that's all, sometimes that might sound strange to people, but it's a reality. Now, how do we know, as far as, why do you call them the first wavers? Because were they actually the very first indigos? And on that note, why are they called indigos?
Okay. Yes, they are. I call them first wavers. That's kind of a term I coined. And we see that the little children that are indigos, well, the first wavers are the weight breakers, the morphogenetic field breakers, the front lines of the whole movement are the first wavers. And they get knocked and kicked and dragged and beat up psychically and physically, and it's not a job for the weak at heart, and because you're one. And it's if you don't have the guts, and if you haven't been trained. Now I believe that the first wave indigos were trained in what we call the ultraviolet realm. Now, there was an ultraviolet realm inside the hologram and an ultraviolet realm outside the hologram. And the one inside is a similitude or a duplicate of the one outside. I call these cosmic cleanup crew academies. And the indigo, or the ultraviolet realm, in order to even go to that academy, you had to graduate from 5 other cosmic cleanup crew academies to even get your papers in for that one, so to speak. And all of this is just kind of analogous, but this is kind of how it was mapped out to me, so and from what I remember. So first wave indigos, after they went through their training, if they qualified, then they would get this indigo ultraviolet energy in their aura. And there's a lot of people out there now that are saying, "Oh, you don't want that. You want the white light. Get rid of the purple. You want the white light." No, don't go there. You earned that, and don't let anybody tell you to get rid of it, because that's part of your essence, and that's part of your, and I'm going to say the word, power. It's very challenging these days because people are shying away from power. I know our consciousness and organized religion tries to keep you away from the word power, because power is equated to bad and evil. And so if all of these people, like the first wave Indigos, are afraid of their power and don't take on their mantle of power and don't activate what I call their X-Men abilities, then the only ones that are going to have power are the Dark Lords and the powers that be that use their power to tyrannize the rest of us. And it's my understanding that the first wave Indigos are the only ones on this planet today. I shouldn't say only, there may be some other ones, but the majority of what's on this planet today that can take on the powers that be head on and have the ability and the tenacity to clear the corruption and take them down and out so that balance can come back onto this planet again. And we haven't had balance. You know, it's almost like people, it's hard for them to know because the corruption has been here for so long, it's hard to understand what balance is. But first wave Indigos know what balance is. They have to do it every day to stay stay in their body.
To stay alive. No,
absolutely.
You're absolutely right.
And so it's exciting, you know, to see them gathering and collecting, and I believe very strongly, in fact I know, that we're winning this battle. Sometimes it gets real disheartening and you feel like, oh, what's the use, or we're never going to get things fixed down here, but I have been told that, yeah, we do, and we do win. We just have to go through the motions of it now.
Well, you know, and it's interesting what you're saying. In the last few days, I've watched a couple of different movies. I'm not going to name the movies. I'm not going to get into it. The theme of both movies, one of them was about lobbyists, and the other one was very similar in relationship to how laws are passed in the USA. And both movies were independent films, and it's just amazing to me that both movies depicted the crimes, and it showed how long it took these individuals in the movie to fight the good fight to actually get to the place where the laws were changed. And just an example, one of them was needles in the hospitals. Someone had developed prior to 2000 needles that so you wouldn't have accidental needle pricks, because 800,000 nurses in the country a year were getting poked by a needle accidentally, by someone that came in emergency, and was flailing and punching and kicking, and they would get stuck with a needle. And then out of the 800,000, some of them were getting AIDS. The AIDS virus, you're a nurse trying to save somebody else's life. AIDS virus, hepatitis C, and a multitude of others. And then these same needles also, the problem for the needles was because prior to plastic needles, we had glass, which you could, clean. You could clean those. And as far as the plastic, you can't get everything, although they recycle them. So this is where the problem began. And a gentleman invented a needle that would just, the minute it hit something, it would pop back into the syringe, so that if there was an accident going on or the person bumped the needle, the patient, that the nurse wouldn't get poked with that needle. And it took them years and years and years. Of course, an attorney firm that took it on was, a small firm that didn't have much power, and it basically, the movie just described, I said I wasn't going to say anything, but I'm saying it anyway. The movie described the bureaucracy and the why. In the end, the answer to the question of why will you not order these new needles? They don't cost any more than the old ones, and they're safe, and they will prevent, disease and death from practitioners. And what it turned out to be was simply the companies that were making the needles that are not safe, there was something in it for them. And it was just huge. including overseas, like using them for viruses and so forth. In Africa, Africa was mentioned, and statistics. So I won't go any further. Back to your kingdom, Laura.
No, I hear you. And
you understand?
And
so that's what I'm saying.
Indigos
it just goes
on the front line.
Yes.
Everywhere, and they are on the front lines of this battlefield. Absolutely. And I want to say to all you Indigos out there, you've been trained for this. When you feel down, when you feel like, oh my gosh, I can't get up again, this place is just too messed up, I want out, give yourself some downtime.
Right.
Go have some chocolate or something, and then get back up again, because we all feel the same way. We all have those down days. I'm sure you have them too, Roxy, where you think, oh man, it's just, are we doing any good? Well, I'm telling you, we are. We are doing so much good, and the opposition is getting scared. They really are, because if we, I'm hearing the word run amok, if they let Indigos run amok, it's over. And I have news for you, Indigos are already running amok, so it is over. So
Yes. That seems to be very consistent with many of my other guests, and much of my research. It seems to be very consistent. How does somebody know that they're a first wave Indigo? What would be some of the signs of that for those who are listening?
And this is on my website, so for those of you that want to see it, it's on the website. But besides being born, en masse between 69 and 87, and then in the 50s, the baby boomers, they're highly intelligent in their own way. They have their own way of doing things. They may be able to calculate in their head things and then just write down answers. A lot of them were reprimanded in school because they couldn't show the word. They just did it in their head, and they just had the answer. They're literally wired different than other people. Their energy flow is different. I know that on I'll say normal people or earth people, the energy flows like clockwise, and for Indigos it goes counterclockwise. And I know a lot of Indigos have had challenges going to some of the spiritual classes that are supposed to teach you how to clean your energy field and clear your chakras. And we need to talk about chakras, because that's a really important
I definitely want to talk about that.
We'll talk about that in a minute.
Your take on that. Yeah,
for Indigos, nothing works for them. The ways that work for other people don't work for them. In their heart and their core, they know that they're here on a mission, but they're just, a lot of them can't remember exactly what that is or how to go about it. They have an inner awareness that things that are taught in churches and school are not accurate, and that there's hidden agendas and lies that are being accepted by the masses as truth. And this is extremely a frustration to them, and inspires them to uncover the cover-ups and expose the real truth. And many of them have very strong or unusual psychic and telepathic abilities. They have a very strong sense of truth and ethics and justice and freedom. And that's why they don't do authority figures very well, because most of the authority doesn't align with this.
Oh, my. We're going to take a short break, and when we get back, let's continue talking about that. And I have a question about the great UV realm, so maybe we can talk about that. We're talking about the Indigos with Laura Lee Mistycah, the true X-Men, the Jedis, knights of old, so to speak, here to shatter the illusion, wake one another up. And Laura Lee, they don't care for authority figures, huh?
No, not at all.
And why is
great? Let me just kind of give the rest of the profiles, and then we'll go into your question about the ultraviolet realm.
Yes.
Okay, so Indigos have an extraordinary levels of compassion, and many of them are very intuitive and have empathic abilities. And some of them are so empathic they don't know what's somebody else's problem and what's theirs. And I've worked with a lot of indigos to help them get decipher between the two. They have affinity for knights and castles and dragons, and in fact, every indigo has at least one dragon as a guardian. And all indigos have an affinity for purple and ultraviolet. Now, many of them shut down their psychic abilities when they were younger because it scares people. And I'm here to tell you, boot those back up. You're going to need them. Many of them feel like they could be characters on the 1980s series, The Misfits of Science, or the X-Men. And many of them get along better with animals and nature than people. They have a connection with trees and nature in general. They feel very comfortable lounging and would rather sit on the floor on a pillow than a hard, uncomfortable chair, and would prefer this sitting on the floor in school and even business meetings if they could get away with it. And are you that way? Do you feel like you would rather lounge around on the floor than sit in a chair?
Many times. Many times. Yes, of course.
That's a real trademark. Okay, and many of them are very attracted to soft, natural fabrics, and fuzzy blankets are just the ultimate. Many of them are impatient when somebody doesn't get to the point. They're like, okay, come on, get to the point. What's the bottom line? Give me the bottom line. Indigos are very creative and inventive and very intuitive. They involve themselves in human and animal rights efforts. Many have an innate sense of connectedness to all of creation or the web of life, and they get confused why other people don't see this reality of connecting to all of it, like the nature spirits and the plants and the animals. They have a high capacity for love, and therefore other people feel very uncomfortable around this intensity. They're very sensitive and sometimes hypersensitive, and they may not be able to, like I said, distinguish between the emotional fields of those around them and their own personal fields. Many go through periods of apathy and cynicism as coping mechanisms, and I know many indigos that have done that, and I've done that a few times myself. They have an intense longing for their own kind, their soulmates, but they're not sure where to look. They have had what I endearingly term HDD, or hug deficit disorder, which means they need immense amount of touching and hugging and loving and cuddling, which also makes people feel kind of uncomfortable around them. Because of being misunderstood and betrayed, many develop very strong trust issues and therefore keep many of their thoughts and feelings and opinions to themselves. And they're very disciplined when properly motivated. They get bored and frustrated in school. Female indigos seem to do authority a little better than men, maybe because they know how to outsmart, get around it without direct conflict. Many have found themselves in alternative schools. The female indigos seem to be able to cope better in school than their male counterparts, and many were labeled dyslexic and found themselves in special classes. Indigos have a strong desire to know why, and if they don't see the point in something, or if it isn't explained to them properly, they will feel that it's simply not worth their time and energy, and either will react with resistance or simply blow off the people that they don't deem that is worth their time and energy. And this is a huge trademark for indigos. They innately have their own way of calculating things, and that's why many of them were accused of cheating in school. Indigos have an evolved awareness of how things should work, and therefore many of the rigid rules of learning math and English and physics, not metaphysics or quantum physics, but physics, don't make sense to them. And all first-wave indigos have some kind of a gift of healing, whether it's making people feel good, whether it's telepathic healing, whether it's healing with new unproven methods, but that's a huge trademark. And many of them were, especially the 80s kids, were put on Ritalin, which is a sad thing because they thought that they had attention deficit disorder. And mostly it's because they were running way ahead of the class and just got bored. Most indigos, especially males, have a high innate aptitude for computers and electronics and mechanics. They just know how it works. It's like they can get into the mind of it and had very little help from an instruction manual. First-wave indigos are extremely creative and express themselves in innate skills and sometimes outrageous forms. These skills manifest in things like drawing, painting, sculpting, decorating, photography, writing, making blueprints and prototypes, composing, playing music, even if they've never had a lesson, inventing games and creating new and more efficient ways of doing things. And many indigos are not interested in aggressive sports such as football and hockey. They'd rather use their physical exercise time in outdoor sports like track and field, skateboarding, mountain climbing, cycling, kayaking, etc., and are very attracted to discipline, things like self-defense and fencing and martial arts. Because of their feeling so foreign on the planet, and a very high percentage of indigos have been put on antidepressants, which try to make them feel or appear normal to fit into society, and this is just a temporary fix. It never fixes it. And many indigos were drawn to theatrics, drama, stand-up comedy, because in these venues they can pretend to be someone else when actually they're being themselves and expressing themselves this way. And because of feeling so alien here, there are many who went through periods of severe grief and loneliness and disappointment, and many turned to drugs and alcohol or attempted suicide as a way out. Now, the interesting thing is one of the trademarks that a high percentage of first-wave indigo knights have is living through extreme hardships as children and teenagers and young adults. Many were born into families and situations that were physically, emotionally, and spiritually and psychically abusive. And these indigos had to figure out how to balance and keep their inherent integrity levels while being subjected to these painful and life-shattering experiences. And a large percentage were implanted in such horrendous situations as organized crime, physical abuse, sexual abuse, and ritual abuse and mind control. And it is also very common for first-wave indigos to have some kind of alien encounters. Now, the interesting thing is there was a dark agenda on the planet to keep indigos from waking up and taking on their mantle of power inside. And that is why many of these indigos have been sucked into these harsh, debilitating environments. Now, the dichotomy is that the indigos innately know that in order to transform corruption, pollution, and dysfunction on this plane, you have to go inside to the core or the mind of the system to know how it operates, and that's how to change the system and alter it and bust that system. And indigos came here to bring order and balance back to the planet in chaos and headed for destruction. And I believe the indigos are the fifth element that came here as part of the cosmic cleanup crew to rid the planet of corruption and consciousness that is physically and energetically diseased, and that is imprisoning and destroying all life forms and mutating them. And I just want to say to all of you indigos out there, if you feel a real connection to what I am saying, most likely you are an indigo, and you'll just be able to feel it in your heart and in your core. And if you do feel that you are an indigo, one of the things that would be very important for you is to get one of these almoricite stones of truth and justice. These are what I use to remove implants with. this stone was in the ultraviolet realm with us. We snuck it in here, and this is one of our key, what should we call it, a Trojan horse?
Oh, right. Let's talk more about that stone when we come back. We're at the top of the hour. When we come back, we're going to take some callers as well. It's 218-339-8525. You're listening to the Truth Tonight Talk Radio, and we'll be right back. Our guest, Laura Lee Mistycah. Again, the book is Living in an Indigo House, the Heartaches and Victories of the First Wave Indigos. And you said something the last hour, Laura Lee, that really caught my attention, other than the list of, oh my goodness, expansive list of what an indigo's life is like, and what they feel and think, and how they react to this world. You said something interesting. You said they learned or know that in order to transform the system, that they have to go into the mind of the system.
Mm-hmm.
Would you mind expanding on that a little bit?
Oh, absolutely. And this is like the dichotomy of, it's like the plight of an indigo. We had to go into some of the most corrupt places on this planet, which is also in this universe, in order to get the keys and the codes we need to bust the system. You can't understand a system and a corrupt system unless you've been in it. You can kind of look at it and kind of know it, but unless you've been in it, you don't know it. So that's why some people were addicts. That's why some people allowed themselves to go into situations like cult programming and MK Ultra slave survivors. It's like I said, we're now Trojan horses to them. They thought that they could control us, but they didn't. And they thought in the beginning, when they knew, it's like they knew we were coming. They knew. And so they thought, okay, we've got this grand plan of how to beat them down and keep them under our thumb. Well, I'm telling you, it didn't work. One of the things that I've been working with some of my Indigo clients with is that we had forced agreements. Indigos had forced agreements when they came to this planet to try to mess them up. And I'm going to read you some of these that have happened to some of my clients, and you think, my gosh, how did they even function? And that's my point. We're strong enough and tough enough and smart enough and psychic enough to maneuver around this stuff that we can get out the other side. Now listen to some of these forced agreements. This is one that I had. My kid's life will be hellish if they get close to me. Here's another one. 70% of the time and energy that you spend has to be on distractions, and 10% has to be on self-destructing activities. Now that's a harsh one, and I know that a lot of you out there have had this. Here's another one. Only allowed 20% instant recall of important things like names, dates, places, events, faces, etc. Now, I have been working on this a lot because I will be talking to somebody or on a show or something, and then all of a sudden, it's like somebody takes my next thought out. It's just like pluck the thought out, and you're searching for the thought, and you can't find it, and you have to kind of schmooze and go around it. This is either a forced entrance agreement or an implant. Okay, now here's another one. We have the forced agreement to have our junk DNA turned on, which our junk DNA is the DNA that will activate all of our X-Men abilities, right? So we have this forced agreement that we won't do this.
Oh, my goodness.
We agree to have waves of being locked into fear frequency. Here's another one. If you come into the hologram, we will find you and we will put you in a spirit trap and you will never get out. And then right next to that is, if you use your psychic abilities, we will kick you out of the hologram. So it's this really crazy-making stuff that just bends your mind. Here's another one. Internal dulled senses for your own good. Here's another one. For every subject that you learn, there will be one that you can never learn. So it's almost like you have to pick and choose which things you'll learn because there's stuff that you can't learn that you really want to. Here's another one. You have to share information, resources, time, and energy with the assholes that have been on your tail for eons. And that's a really harsh one because it shuts you down. You don't want to get into anything that's classified because you're afraid they're going to steal it. Here's another one. You are only allowed 5% of your body's potential, both physically and psychic. And here's another one. You have to pick up physical and emotional affirmities from those close to you. And I've seen a lot of Indigos that do that. They pick up their family stuff and all this crap that it's not even theirs. And it's because they feel like they're under contract to do this. And when I first understood about these forced agreements, it was such a light bulb that went on. So I started systematically finding them and clearing them, and this is how I did it. So for those of you that think you have them, I would get you an amorosite rock and start clearing these suckers out. But this is what I did. And I'm getting that it's okay to share this over the airwaves. I wasn't quite sure because it's my trade secret, but I'm going to share it. First, you set up what I call cosmic recycle bins. And these are, it's done on a psychic level. It's these, ask your guides and guardians for help with these, but these are literal cosmic recycle bins. And when you put something in, it recycles it much like a black hole. So anything that comes out has been purified. Now, sometimes you put things in there and nothing comes out because there was nothing worthwhile to begin with. So if you put something down the recycle bin, you know that it's going to be done well. I think anyone should be okay. If there's a negative entity and you shove them down the recycle bin, don't worry that you've done something bad because it's a good thing. We should all be willing to be cleaned out that well. So set up, first step is to set up recycle bins. Then get your amorosite rock and get all of your backups to go in with you. And then you take out all of the lashes in the implant removal protocol. There's a lot of, you get backlash and front lash and side lash and lash removal lash and all of these things for taking steps to clear these implants. So you take out all of the lashes, and then you go to the forced agreement holders, and you show them their agreements, and you tell them, I was just crossing my fingers when I made this agreement, therefore it's null and void, and then you do a surprise attack and stuff them down the recycle bin.
My goodness.
It works. I've done it.
That sounds like fun.
And it's hysterical, isn't it? It's really funny.
when you work with people, Laura Lee, do you actually? It sounds like you do, but I don't want to assume anything. Do you actually take your clients, your visitors that you're helping, and walk them through all of this scenario?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
When I get a client,
I want to know something,
especially with the implant removal protocol, it's on the website, but some people feel like they want somebody to walk them through it first. And that's what I'll do, is help them find out which implants are the most important ones for them to take out first, walk them through it, and then they will have the expertise to then go do the rest of them. Now, if there's one that they feel like is really intense and they don't want to do it alone, then they can call me back and I'll help them through those too. Now, it's interesting that sometimes the forced agreements, the implants they're kind of the same sometimes. And so here's a list of some of the implants. Now, these are really interesting. If you use your X-Men abilities, they will find you and kill you or someone you love. If you tell the truth, no one will listen. you can't let go of heartaches. You feel guilty when you call on your spirit guides and guardians for help. Your realm memories are blocked. And this is a really important that I've seen a lot of indigos have in relationships. They have an attractor or a magnet for men to attract spider, snake, and cat ladies, and the information for those is on the website. And for women, they keep attracting assholes for relationships. Now, two things here. One, maybe you have to attract those in the beginning to get the codes and keys to bust a system, but once you've got the education, you need to get rid of that implant, that attractor implant. And so,
right. Okay.
Go ahead.
You know, you're bringing something up very important. I was going to say that what you just said, I find I have a lot of amazing friends in my life, and I know you do as well. And women who are even 20 years my senior, who occasionally will say to me something like, gosh, I thought I was done with this. I'm back out in the backyard digging the hole and slaying the dragons all over again. Mm-hmm. And this may be the piece that you're talking about, that even though we went to school of hard knocks, we cleared it up, we learned what it is, we assisted other people with what we learned, and then yet it resurfaces in our life again, and there we are saying, I thought I was done with this. Exactly.
And if you go to a New Age guru helper, they'll say, well, what's the matter with you? Can't you just get over it? Well, if you don't know you've got an implant about it, no. And these implants are tricky and sneaky. And now this is interesting, for every contract that an indigo has, the things that they committed to do here, they have at least one or more implants that are trying to keep them from doing it. So the good news is, if all of these indigos are doing as good as they are right now without even knowing about this stuff, how much better could they be once they got a rock and once they start getting rid of their implants? They could start turning on their X-Man abilities real fast, real strong, and no one will dare touch them once that happens.
Wow, that's really empowering. Hello?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, okay. We had this long pause of silence. Okay.
Yes, it is empowering. I thought you were going to say something else.
She got empowered and left. She's out there slaying dragons. So, okay, wonderful. That's so self-empowering. Now, can you describe just briefly, because this show is starting to really fly by. And by the way, if there's anybody that wants to call in and speak with Laura Lee about this, don't be afraid. Don't be ashamed. It's all good. It's 218-339-8525. Call in, talk to us. Maybe you have some of these. I don't want to call them symptoms because I don't think they're symptoms, but some of these. You know what I mean? Symptomatic would be, but yeah, some of these symptoms, perhaps, lack of better terminology. But please call in. You can hear we're both friendly, and you won't be looked down upon for being this wonderful, wonderful person that we all are. Again, 218-339-8525. Call us. We'll take your call. But I was going to say, or ask, when you do work with some people and get them hooked up to the real deal, so to speak, exposed to them, what's been happening with them, why they're having the existence that they're having, or, all this wonderful attributes that they have that they can't use because they've got these implants that are going totally against, or like you say, contracts going against the skills of these individuals, these knights and these wonderful ladies. And what happens to them when they, in other words, are you part of, and if I may use the terminology, are you part of an activation for them of sorts?
I would say yes.
Me too.
And so is the website. Sometimes all people have to do is go into the website, and it just activate something when you go into.
You're talking about FirstWaveIndigos.com, right?
Correct.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. And for everybody out there, it's FirstWaveIndigos.com.
Correct.
Okay.
And when you go there, if you feel something stirring inside, you know that you're one of those, and it's time to get moving. It's time to go to the next level. And also the Almorasite Stone of Truth is a huge activator. You just have to read about the rock to understand that, and it is immensely important. I would be dead, and I'm not kidding. I'm not being a drama queen. I would be dead without this rock, and it will be your best friend.
Wow. Now, as far as those who do come to you for information and so forth, now what is a knight? And Knight. What is a knight?
Okay. I call the first wave indigos ultraviolet knights because they are truly the knights from the ultraviolet realm. They personify the epitome of a knight, and that includes women too. And that is when you go through the website, and I highly recommend to your listeners that feel like they're an indigo to start out with the story of the realm so you understand how it all got started, how the corruption got started, and you can start putting the pieces to the puzzle together of your own personal puzzle. And then a lot of the things that you suspected or thought are going to start unraveling, and you're going to get ahas, and the dots are going to connect, and it's just going to snowball. And your life will take on new meaning, and you will start getting a sense of camaraderie and of self, and it's extremely exhilarating. It's like, yes, finally, we've been waiting all of our lives to do this, and it's showtime, it's game time, it's game on.
So indigos actually do, once they have that sort of self-recognition, they meet up with other indigos then?
Absolutely. It's interesting that indigos, they feel so alone, and because they're kind of recluses, because they've had all of these implants that make them recluse. Well, once they get rid of some of their implants, then they start linking up, and I tell you what, the things that can happen then with information exchanged and videos that are made and radio shows like yours, it's a huge movement, and it's not going to stop.
Nice. I want to hear so much more about this. I don't want this show to ever end. You're listening to the Truth Tonight Talk Radio. I'm Roxy Lopez. We'll be right back. We are speaking with Laura Lee Mistycah, Lady Mistycah, about indigos. And for those of you who are listening, you know, indigos are deeply passionate, sensitive, psychic, intuitive. You're empaths. You're programmed by either implants or horrific contracts. And to break out of this trap and these restrictions, you know, the indigos, no matter what, they survive. And when they do become activated, it sounds like this is their true and authentic place of the Jedi or the Knight. And you don't need to live in this prison. And from what we're speaking about right now, Laura Lee, we have the opportunity to aid and set other indigos free, correct?
Yes, absolutely. I wanted to touch on something. All indigos walked in to their body. None of them were born there. And this is a very different phenomena than what you'll find with any other group of people. And indigos walked in, and they will walk out before they die. So they're not born, and they don't die. That's a very kind of unique thing to indigos. Now, what happens, there's a process. There's step-ins and walk-ins and anchor-ins and lock-ins. Now, the step-in process is where you'll step in and out of like 3 bodies that you think might be the one that you're going to need to really work with. And so you step in and step out, and you can even step in and step out of the body that you're in, and then at some point in time, you walk in, and usually there's something really profound that happened. Some people, it was an auto accident or something, and some people just had a really profound spiritual experience or something like that. But usually people remember, when I scan them and find out when they walked in, they remember of some big event that happened then. So now when you walk in, understand that the resident being of that body, it's a contract with them. You're not this isn't like a shove-in, which I talk about in my ghost book, where a ghost says, oh, well, there's a cool body, I'm going to go shove into that one. It's not like that at all. There was an agreement with the resident being, the host of that body, to work with, and that's how they did their contribution to helping this planet along, is to allow Indigos to see if that body would fit for them. So after you step in and step out and you decide to walk in, then you're kind of anchored in there, but you could still leave if you want. Now, I've worked with Indigos, and sometimes the heat got too much, and the Indigo left, and the resident being came back in there. And it's kind of crazy-making until I figured out what was going on, and I could see it psychically. Well, for the resident being, the Indigo, sometimes when you go to a past life regression, the person giving you the regression is actually picking up on the past life of the resident being, not yours. Unless they pick up on a lifetime that sounds like something really cosmic out in the universe somewhere, it probably wasn't your history at all. And I know some Indigos get really kind of off on a tangent with these past life regressions, because, and it's not the therapist's fault. I mean, they're just, going with what they see. And so I just wanted to caution Indigos, when they do that type of therapy, realize that it could very well be the resident being that they're getting past life history on, not
oh, my
your
goodness.
history. And I think that's really important to note. So then the next step is to anchor in. And once you're anchored in, you're pretty, and this is a conscious thing. You don't get anchored in unless you want to, unless you say, okay, you know what? I'm here for the long haul. This is the body I want. I'm staying. Now, an interesting thing happened to me that I wasn't aware of at the time. I was working with two other bodies, and a situation happened that made me anchor in. I think that was about the time that my pet fish died, and there's a whole story behind that. But all of a sudden, I could sense these two other women with me, and I'm like, are they okay? And they started talking to me. I'm like, God, that's kind of weird. And then we started having conversations in my head, and then I thought, this is kind of cool to have somebody with you all the time, and I really enjoyed it. And one of this was at the time that I was living with what I call the son of a cult lord, and things were really crazy in my life right then. I had, this guy was an open vessel for entities coming in day and night, and I got my education, I'm telling you what. I got my education in cults and in shove-ins and in walk-ins and in all sorts of things. So I'm living with this guy, and this other being that was, or not another being, it was actually a part of me that came from another body, said, oh my gosh, this is so annoying. How do you stand this? And I'm like, yeah, how would you like to be in this body for this long? She says, God, I don't know, I have stood it. We got to do something about this. We got to get you out of this situation. So it's just hysterical to be talking to myself, and it took me a while to realize what was going on. Well, after a while, I started not feeling these other two aspects of myself, and it merged and locked in. And at that point in time, I locked into this body. I am not going anywhere. This is where I'm at, and there's only two other people that I know of that have consciously locked themselves in their bodies. And then the other two aspects of themselves that were in other two bodies came in and joined them. Now, the reason we do three is because if something happens to one of them, you've got another one to work with in case something goes wrong. So this is a very wacky, way out there kind of situation that a lot of people go, oh, you know, that's too weird for me. But those who have been there, and maybe there's even some of the listeners that have felt this walk-in, anchor-in experience, and I just want you to know how it works. This is kind of the dynamics of how it works, and this is the way it's supposed to work, and you're not crazy, and it's all okay.
Right, and I can understand that. I can see that. It does get a little confusing, for sure, but step in, and that makes sense. Step in, step out, and then when you finally anchor in and why, makes sense. Now, what about the, one of the articles that you've got on your website about the secret behind the chakras?
Oh, yeah.
Can you talk about that?
That's a very cool article. The story behind that is pretty interesting. I didn't know that the chakra system, that there was anything wrong with it. And we were having a night's training at my house, and the subject came up of somebody having challenges with their third eye. And one of the nights in the training session said, I hate my third eye. I just want to get rid of it. It's nothing but problems. I thought, ooh, that's kind of intense. So I had everybody just kind of do a meditation so we could see if there was something wrong with third eyes. And what we found out was phenomenal. We discovered that the chakra system is an imposed system that is not natural. It is not the way we should be. And what happens, is that these cones make our bodies cut off from each other. It compartmentalizes you. So outside energy sources can come and steal your energy. So every time you clean your chakras out, that just makes it great for somebody to come in and hook into you easier. And that's why some of you that keep cleaning your chakras out, it never seems to fix it. I know that sometimes there's things that you have to keep working on, but with the chakra system, cleaning it out will never, ever fix it. Because it's
what do people say? What do people say to you when you say this? When you tell them this?
Some people, it's interesting. Some people are really upset and think I'm cuckoo. And there's so many indigos that have come and said, "Oh my gosh, I've never felt comfortable with my chakras. They're more of a pain than anything, and this makes total sense to me." I had one fellow that was a holistic practitioner, a very good healer. And he was kind of scared about doing this. So what he did is shut down each chakra before he actually removed them. And when he did, he had been having a lot of problems sleeping. And when he shut down his chakras and got rid of them, he slept all night for the first time he could remember. And I told him it's probably because he didn't have all that static going on, and he was on guard all the time because he never knew who or what was going to come calling to steal his energy. Now, the thing is, the chakra system, when you see it, that's what's there. I have a picture of Barbara Brennan's pictures on my website, and that's totally what's there. It's not that it's wrong, that it's misguided. It's that it's not supposed to be there. And once you take that out, what is original to us is our core star. It's in your heart and in your solar plexus, that whole area. And that's where your soul resides. That's where your higher self is. And that core star can send energy throughout the whole body without compartmentalizing it. It can be more efficient because it's got access and it knows the whole body, and it can, if your arm needs something, it can put together a package and send it to your arm. If your head needs something, it can custom design something to your head. It doesn't have to go through the systems, and that could, like I say, they were designed to compartmentalize and keep you separated. Now, something else that is interesting that I haven't had time to put on the chakra article yet, and we found another block. We found plates around, at your neck and at your waistline, so that you cannot get information from your head to your heart, heart to head, and from your heart to your creative centers. So therefore, it causes real challenges in trying to be a whole person and using both the head, the heart, and the creative centers in unison, because you had these plates there. Well, I took out my plates, and things are much easier now. Then we found a plate that goes right down the center of your body, dividing right and left, and then one that's on the side of your body, dividing front and back. So when you start taking out your implants, I would suggest that you look at these and remove these also.
Right. Do you have to do the Indigos remove their own implants, or do they have somebody who can help to remove them?
They can, like I said, you can remove your own, because the protocol is up here. And if you're on a budget and you can't afford a session with me, I tried to make everything as user-friendly as possible. All you will need is a rock and or a pendant. Now, the pendants have dust from the rock in them, and they're only $25, so they're pretty darn affordable. And the rocks are $50 for 10 grams. Now, what I've been doing, because the rocks like to go in pairs, is I'll gift a smaller rock with, if you buy a 10-gram one, I'll gift you like a 5-gram one, so you can have one in each hand when you start removing your in any of these implants or anything, because you have to sometimes put it, say if the implant is in your head, you have to put a rock on one side of your head and on the other side of your head, so that the rock will have access to help you quarantine that implant.
Okay. Sounds good. And Laura Lee, are all Indigos benevolent?
Gosh, I wish I could say yes.
Me too.
Actually, no. There's some that aren't. Luckily, it's only about 20%, but they're what I call indigo brats, and they are using their abilities to help the powers that be, and it's a sad thing, but at least it's only 10%.
My goodness. We're going to take a short break and come back with our last 15 minutes with Laura Lee Mistycah. I'm Roxy Lopez. This is the Truth Tonight Talk Radio. Our guest, again, Laura Lee Mistycah, Lady Mistycah, I call her. And we were just wrapping up the idea that, that not all Indigos are benevolent. You were saying about 20%, and they're sort of, I think you had a word from
Yeah, well, actually, see, and when I give percentages, understand that it can change. I've had to change a lot of things on my website because things shift and change, and what was going on 10 years ago may not be happening right now. But as of right now, there's only, thank goodness, like 10% of the Indigo Nation that are what I call Indigo brats, using their talents and their abilities to for destruction. And I talk about these talents and abilities. They're not gifts. Nobody gave an Indigo their abilities. They were earned, hard blood, sweat, and tears earned their abilities. So I just want to distinguish that between what some people, they always want to talk about gifts. Well, these were not gifts. These were earned, they were learned, and we need to start using them.
Right. Right. And I understand what you're talking about, the earned part, and I think you mentioned it earlier, like martial arts. Every time you get to a certain place, you get another belt until you're up to a black belt, and then a third degree and a fourth degree, and so forth and so forth. So everything that they've done, they have earned. And it sounds wonderful that the Indigos, again, in the book, people, there are letters that people write back and forth to Laura Lee, and you can actually see the actual letters that they've written her, and some of their awareness of what they're now. They become aware that they're an Indigo, and some of the things that we can do about that, and the awakening of it. How many people on the planet do you think are Indigos, like awake Indigos?
Oh, awake ones.
That already know, and they already are victorious, and they know that they are going to bring this veil down, that they know.
Okay, maybe some of them don't know about the first wave Indigos or know what that is, but there's about 20% of the planet, which is huge. 20%, we can do a lot with 20%. And they're all over the planet. They are everywhere. They are in every culture, every country. They are everywhere. And so, yeah, we've got a good group. We can do it with 20%.
That's 1.5 billion people.
Yeah.
Nice.
So nice, yeah. It's looking better, isn't it?
Where's the club? I want to sign up.
Yeah. Well, you're already signed up, Roxy. You're already there.
I have a feeling you're right there, Missy. I was going to say, on our website, I have somebody had said something that really, really empowered me a couple of months ago, and so we put it on our website, another version of it, which says, humanity is 7 billion strong. We are the majority, and of course that's on the introduction to my radio show. And every time I hear that, I think I feel so amazing. I mean, seriously, when I feel that in my bones, in my heart, that we are 7 billion strong and we are the majority, damn it. It's one of those,
That's
you know
right.
what I mean? Yeah, so there, it's a fact.
And we know how to change things.
Well, yes, and I so appreciate, you discussing with us all of the relative information for those. I'm like you. I also get a lot of email traffic, and you just wouldn't believe the people that are, it's so sad to me when they have all of these abilities and they say, "What's wrong with me?" And it's like there's nothing wrong. The only thing that I could say that would be wrong is that you don't realize how important you are, and but you will, and
precisely,
right.
Because I really appreciate what you're saying, because so many of these Indigos go, God, what is my problem? Why can't I just get over it already? And it's because of these dang implants. We got to get rid of them. And I can understand your concern for these people, because you're probably going, heck, I don't know. I know you're doing good stuff. Just keep doing it. But if we don't get rid of these implants, we're only going on, half a cog. And so think what we could do if even 5% of the Indigo Nation started getting rid of their implants. Think what we could do. I mean, it's awesome.
And just the way you describe that, really, that's what I'm thinking. Every time you say get rid of the implants, I'm thinking, really? Because
that's probably an implant.
Probably. No. Well, because who doesn't want complete freedom, and we're like schizophrenics, you know what I mean? It's like the left side of us is saying, I want freedom, I want this, I want that, I want to rise above, and the other one's like, but you can't, but you're not supposed to.
Exactly.
So it's like schizophrenic, frickin' voices in your head.
Exactly. I had an article on my website for a while called "The Voice." It's in the archives now, but all of these Indigos were writing to me, and I realized that there was this thing called the voice, and it was part of the artificial intelligence. We won't be able to go into that maybe on another show.
Okay.
But this voice would keep telling them stuff that maybe sound a little bit true, like, oh, maybe there's some validity to it. And so that was the hook. And this voice, it's like you got to get rid of the voice, and you got to be able to distinguish between your authentic self and the voice, because the voice is just there to mess you up. And your authentic self isn't going to, it's not going to schmooze you. It's just going to give it to you straight. It's not going to tell you, oh, you're the greatest person in the whole world, blah, blah, blah. A lot of people have gotten tricked by ETs that have told them that they are the one that's going to save everybody. And no doubt these people had a lot of abilities, but the ETs were doing it just to mess with them. I've seen this many times, and got them to a point where they realized that they were being sold out by what they thought was their guides, and it was just these renegade ETs just messing with people. And some of these people that have been messed with like this, I said, you know what? This is the turning point. You get to now wipe the slate clean. You know nothing, and you can start over, and you can only put things inside that resonate to your core. And many, many indigos have had to go to that place where they wipe the slate clean and start over. Mine was when I left organized religion, and I didn't know what I believed after that. And that was the beginning of everything for me.
Which is just absolutely amazing, and it's wonderful, and it's a wonderful journey. And to even just have, and I know what you're saying, Laura Lee. You're not trying to say you've got it down, you know it all, you know where it's at, you know where you're going, you know where you've been, and everything's groovy. You're saying that with with this type of information that you have now, at least you can work with it.
Exactly. You've got something tangible to work with, and you've got some kind of a measuring stick, and you start connecting the dots, because you go, oh, okay, no wonders I was so frustrated. Okay, here's the deal, and you can move on from there instead of being stuck in this rut that you can never get out of. And
well,
that's what
yeah,
they wanted.
It's definitely the rat in the cage going around and around and around.
Yeah,
and
the gerbil wheel. Yep.
We're moving, but we're not going anywhere.
We're moving really fast, and we're tired.
Right. The lights are on, but nobody's home. Yeah, it's all that. Well, hey, we've only got a couple minutes of the show. Can you believe that?
Oh, my gosh, that went fast.
I told you it would.
I know you did.
I swear to God,
right.
whenever we get on this show, it's like this time warp, this warp speed things happen. And I want to talk about so much more. And it's like, well, I guess you're just going to have to come back another time so we get into the rest of it.
Okay, we can surely do that.
Right on. And let's give out your website and any email information. And then, Laura Lee, what we're going to do, which is traditional to our show because we're so fond of every guest that comes on, we make a video for you and we write up an article and we put all the information in it for the guests. For the guests and for the audience. And then, of course, we throw that up on our websites and our YouTube channel. They're very, very productive forever and ever and ever for people to find you.
Oh, awesome. That is so nice. You are doing such a marvelous job. I just got to, give kudos to you. You are one of the best out there, and I've seen a lot of them, and I know what I'm talking about.
Thank you, Laura Lee. You've been out there for a long time, and that saying that to me makes me feel really, really, really good because I know where it's coming from. So I so appreciate that, and I want people to go ahead and get in contact with you. Certainly at FirstWaveIndigos.com. And is there any other email address or anything like that for now?
The email address is on there.
Okay.
So just go in there and you'll be able to find me.
Okay, and I'm sure that people will. And then, of course, people do write us at info@thetruthDenied.com. So if you forget Laura Lee's name and you forget how to find the video or whatever, please always write us at The Truth Denied, info@thetruthDenied.com. Laura Lee, you have a fabulous, wonderful, blessed weekend. Thanks so much for coming.
You too, and go do something fun, okay?
I will. Thank you very much for giving me permission. All right. We'll talk to you later.
Okay,
and stay
take
tuned
care.
for Sean David Morton. He's next. And everyone have a wonderful, blessed weekend. Stay safe. It's wonderful to be here. The Truth Tonight Talk Radio. I'm Roxy Lopez.
No rules. No rules. No taboo topics. No taboo topics. No fear of doom. No fear of doom. We are American Freedom Radio. American Freedom Radio.